Hi, welcome to another episode of AI with Intent, the podcast where we really try and focus on providing an unfiltered and real world examples of AI in action. I'm your host, Sam Braden, and I'm delighted to have Simon Revelman with us today, from the CIO of Cravable Brands. Simon, I'd love to hear a bit more about Cravable Brands and yourself, please.
Sure. Yeah. So Cravable Brands is a franchisor that you've probably never heard of, but you've heard of the brands we have: Red Rooster, Oporto, Chicken Treat, and Char Charlie's. We operate around 620 restaurants around Australia, selling chicken and chip salads and all sorts of delicious meals.
That's lovely. I should say I'm a big fan of Charlie's as a favourite restaurant. Um, so before we dive in, we should just say that these are very much our own opinions rather than those of our various organisations. But to get to the matter at hand, let's sort of perhaps start with some of what the business problem is that you're really using AI to solve, Simon. What's really happening in your market? Are you facing headwinds, or what's really happening?
Yeah, good question. It's a tough market at the moment. Cost of living pressures are all through the media, um, rising prices, pressure on families trying to make ends meet. And so that then has an effect on us with customers spending less or coming into the restaurants less often. And so we need to find a way to make sure we maximize our share of wallet from those customers' spend versus what they spend at our competitors. So data is obviously very important to understand what's going on, and then being able to use AI to tease out trends, to make quicker decisions based on information in that data, to allow us to know where to pivot in terms of product pricing or promotions or loyalty or various other areas such as wastage, labor, inventory, are all little levers we have available to us that can all make a small difference, that all add up when pulled together.
Okay, that's great. And you mentioned loyalty there. I mean, how important is developing customer loyalty and moving away from perhaps just sort of the short-term incentives? How do you sort of build that from a long-term perspective?
So loyalty is very important to us. We know our loyalty customers come in more often and they spend more each visit. And so when you can multiply the amount of loyalty customers we have, it has a big effect to the bottom line. So what we're working through at the moment is determining what is beyond the spend and earn sort of facility that most brands have, but what else are customers looking for to make them come back more often? So they may want to be rewarded with merchandise or events, maybe recognition like gold, silver, platinum, um, with freebies like is normal, with dollars to burn
Hmm.
on different transactions. And so something we're looking to do, we are trialing at the moment, is playing with AI to try and find out if we can differentiate between those customers so that we don't necessarily have a one size fits all loyalty product, but something that tailors to the individual needs. So that makes it more worthwhile to each of those different cohorts to want to join up and stay loyal to our brands.
Yeah, and I think that sort of personalization, um, or the benefit of personalization from AI is certainly a key thing. I mean, it's certainly been around for about the last, or I've been in that space for the last 10 years, where rather than that sort of, just sending outbound marketing, it's very much focused on what you know about the customer. And also not just what you can sell to them, but also how do you maintain their loyalty? Because there's a lot of sort of trying to maximize that lifetime customer value, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. And what it's about is not necessarily finding new ways, but maybe speeding up the process to market to those different cohorts. So, whereas we would have a data person who's going through and working out those segments,
Hmm.
different customers, and then working with marketing to determine how we want to address them. Now we can use AI to quickly run up emails on various promotions or creative or whatever it may be to go out and target those customers with the most relevant offer that is going to attract them back.
Yeah, and I think certainly from experience that sort of the more personalized that sort of email or that outreach can be, the more likely you are to get a positive response.
That's
Um,
100%
yeah,
right. And it's not redefining anything that we haven't done in the past. It's just speeding it up, and we're able to do a lot more individualized promotions just because you don't need the staff to sit there and come up with them.
Yeah, and you can do that thing. You can do that a lot quicker. And obviously, the other interesting thing for you, obviously, you've got your end customers that use those brands, but obviously, you're a franchisor. So, I would imagine for you also the franchisee experience is very important as well. How do you sort of make sure that that experience is as frictionless as it can be?
Sure. So our franchisees are our customers, and so it's very important for us to take care of them, and their success is then our success, because the more they make, the more Cravable Brands makes. So what we're doing at the moment is having a lot of services that we try to provide them to make it as simple as possible to run their business.
Yeah,
If I look at it from an IT perspective, we've got a time and attendance system that helps them, well, it doesn't help them, it automates rosters for them to then check against to make sure it suits what they're thinking, and brings in from learnings labor savings. So we've saved a couple of percent there, to help them with their structure of staffing based on historical sales, future sales, and that sort of thing. We've got inventory systems to be able to work out when they need to reorder, how much they need to reorder, and that sort of thing. At the moment, it's providing metrics to them. In the future, we'll look to automate that so that they just tick it off and it goes through. With data in our centralized system where we know everything about the franchisee, what assets they have, and that sort of thing, we're looking to build in incident management, contractor management, service calls, those sorts of things, just to make it easier for FPs, for franchisee partners, to be able to get the help they need when they require it without having to necessarily speak to anybody. And then on the financial side, we're looking at exploring AI coaching into our reporting that doesn't just, at the moment, they get a report and they need to go through it, but having a coach that can tell them you're over indexing on chicken, you're under indexing on resourcing and that sort of thing, so that they get immediately pointed into the correct area to look at, and then probably provide recommendations as well with that coach. So you could do this, you could do that to help them improve and get more money to that bottom line, run their
yeah.
stores more efficiently.
Yeah, because I would imagine you're in an industry where you have lots of data points, and I would also imagine where margins are quite narrow, and every sort of little percentage point you can either save or increase is actually really important. And added to that, I think the ability to act quickly is probably very important as well, isn't it?
Yeah, very quickly is very important in our industry. We're open up to 24/7,
Yeah,
affected by weather, for example, affected by other things that cause people to come in or to order online instead, promotions that drive sales up quite quickly, and having a tool that can help coach the franchisees to be able to anticipate that or make changes based on that is very important indeed. Something we're not doing yet, but something we're definitely wanting to start trialing very shortly.
yeah, yeah. I can imagine. Um, And when you start to look at how you're going to trial or sort of develop some of these things, how is AI actually affecting both how you work with sort of consultancies and technology vendors? Because certainly from our perspective, we see a big change in how we have to operate with organizations, very naturally with how AI is affecting consultancies. What are you sort of looking for now when you engage with either a technology partner or a consultancy?
So historically, it's always been about relationship, gut feel,
Yeah.
us experience, or uh, reference checks from other people who've used that supplier. And that's how normally I've chosen suppliers, as well as price and availability and, all the normal stuff. Whereas now everybody is trying to sell AI. You've got your big software companies doing it. You've got consultants doing it. You've got solution integrators doing it.
Yeah.
Everyone's obviously got this KPI to get X amount of sales in AI that they're trying to close. And so a lot of people are approaching us and other organizations offering to do X, Y, Z and get X, Y, Z uplift, but none of it's necessarily proven. So what I now look for is skin in the game for those providers. So an unpaid POC to test out
Yeah.
whether those gains can really be realized, or a reward for realizing certain metrics, So we get to try it risk-free. And if
Hmm.
it works out, the supplier is then rewarded. Um, or trial periods, free trial periods. So not being on the hook for 3 years on a license, but having 3 months, 6 months, maybe 12 months to really test something out first before we commit to it longer term. So I think they're the most important things now, because a lot of people talk the talk, but they haven't been able to walk the walk yet because it's just too early.
Yeah, and I suppose following on from that, how in that classic sort of life cycle, or the AI life cycle of, people are experimenting it, then they're doing pilots, and then they're rolling things out into production. How far along that do you think you guys are currently?
We're in all different areas of that. So we have a number of licenses in production across the organization to help people be more efficient with their work,
Yeah.
whether that be Copilot to help with email and PowerPoint and Word, or Claude to deal with our data team, for example, to help them troubleshoot and to test, and some other different areas they're using it in to make them more efficient. We've got ChatGPT in areas, and one place we've used that is a customized build we've done.
Okay.
So just like a company recruits staff, we recruit franchisees as well. And it's a competitive market. There's a lot of brands out there who all want to get the good franchisees. And we need to make sure that, we're putting a good foot forward and we're fast and impressing them. And so historically, what we did is we did it just like old fashioned staffing recruitment. We would call up once they'd applied and do an initial phone interview, and then move them to a second round with a
Hmm.
interview, normally on the telephone as well. And somebody was handwriting down all the notes.
Yeah.
Then over time, we got to using Zoom or Teams, but still handwriting the notes. And we determined there was a much better way to do this. So we took the built-in functionality of Teams to turn that into a transcription. So we removed the need to write anything down from the recruiter, which meant the interviews went longer. They delved more into detail of questions because nobody was worried about having to write it all back out later on. And the other advantage of that was that now we can get that into our instance of ChatGPT, which goes through and then fills out all the interview questions into our system and all the answers that were provided, no matter what order they were made in the interview or if they were made in different places for the same answer, and then give a sentiment up or down based on historical interviews we've done. So what it allows us to do is move someone to the next stage a lot quicker, because we don't have to double type everything back into the system, and we don't then have to think about it. And we've also increased consistency into our decision making, because we're using the historical, not for each recruiter, but overall, to make a call on whether they're a good one or a not so good one to progress.
That's a really good example, because I think it's got two elements to it, hasn't it? I mean, one is the efficiency side, but probably the more important thing is actually how quickly you can move through the process. Because anyone that has been involved with sales is the more quickly you can react to hopefully get someone to say yes, the far more likelihood you have of being successful. So that sounds like a really, a powerful use case, basically.
Yeah, very much so. And as you know from when you've interviewed for jobs, you
Yeah.
like to hear back soon as
Yeah,
well.
of course.
And so anything we can shrink there helps us look like we're more in control and, you know, going to be a good partner to join with.
Yeah. Oh, definitely, definitely. You've sort of touched, or it's been mentioned a few times, and certainly, we see it with other organisations. But data becomes vitally important in an AI AI world, or when you're looking to adopt AI. How important is having that sort of single source of truth, or at least a consistent data set within your organisation for the basis of AI?
So it's essential, in my opinion. So we've got all disparate systems with data, and some of them are polling data into the other ones. Um, but it'd be very confusing for a person or an AI agent to go and work out what's going on. So it's important for us to import that all centrally into a data lake, have agreed defined metrics. So gross profit is the same for every system, sales are the same, revenue, profit, that sort of thing. Because when it's all uniform like that, it then allows the agent to go in and give accurate answers without having to guess or calculate on its own. Um, Also, for the other information about having consistency in first name and last name and address and suburb and transaction order ID and value and products ordered, that sort of thing, having that consistency everywhere. So when it's going around trying to build a report or analysis on something, the information it's using, we all know, is reliable and accurate. And if we let it off doing its own thing, you'd have to question every time whether what it was showing you was the right thing or not.
Yeah, I get that. And I suppose in your organization, how have you also approached sort of identifying or prioritizing what the next potential AI use cases could be? Is that, yeah, what sort of approach have you typically used?
So in the past, what it was is people would look at me and say, "Oh, what can we do AI for next? Or can we use it in this or whatever?"
Yeah.
And I'd have to be like, well, I don't really understand your individual processes that go on to be able to determine that. So what we did is we brought a group together and provided training on what AI is, the different types of AI, machine learning and agentic and
Hmm.
whatever you want, and then gone through where are good places for it to work and where are not so good places for it to work, and then had a brainstorming session to say each person in my department where that could work. Oh, we do a lot of manual reconciliation. That sounds like it could be a good use case. Or we come up with creative for TV ads. Maybe that's not such a great use case. And working that out. And then once we have that list, jointly going together and then determining priorities. So saying, yeah, everyone agrees that's the first place to start. That's got a lot of benefit to it. So you should look there, or that's the one. And that way everyone's on board together with our limited team to be able to know that they're in line to get some of the benefit of AI.
Yeah. I'd also imagine you'd have to do that almost on a regular basis, whether that's weekly or monthly or or quarterly, because not only is AI technology, improving and increasing, but I'm assuming that there's different impacts on your business or different pressures the business may be having at different times as well.
Yeah, and we don't treat it as something separate. It's just another one of our projects. And we always reevaluate our project list and determine if the priority is still right for what's happening in the business, or do we have to move or cut things. And so I don't want it as a separate stream, because then with limited resources, you're competing to try and get things done. So it has to fold in with everything else the company's doing. And yeah, we make sure that we're keeping on top of it all the time.
Yeah, and I think that approach makes a massive amount of sense because it needs to be part of your normal delivery. Because you also run the risk if it's almost like a special team on its own. It almost becomes like a science experiment sometimes, as in you don't always get the benefits coming back into the business as a whole. So I think just having that as part of your ongoing delivery approach makes perfect sense.
Yeah, the other thing is in Silo, you've got team members like in IT who are very keen
Yeah,
and they're away playing and building things, but there's no buy-in from the business yet or any observability that that's what we're doing or trying to achieve. So best to bring it in the umbrella, everyone agrees, and then we go forward. And that way, when you want to move to UAT and production, everyone's been involved all the way up
yeah.
to that point.
You don't have that scenario, that classic scenario of we've got a great solution now we need to find the problem that it's
Yeah.
fixing. Yeah, I get that. And how have you sort of approached, I suppose, the rollout or the education of your staff as well, both in how to use the AI tools or even how to perhaps make recommendations back into the organization?
So I think I've been a bit slack in this area, to be honest. We sort of let people just work it out themselves. So Copilot went to everybody
Yeah,
to use that. And then there were people who specifically asked for Claude or Gemini, or figured they must know how to use it, gave them that. But now we've gone back a bit and realized that we're not necessarily getting good value for money for that, or there are licenses sitting there underutilized. So commencing in a couple of weeks, we're having lunchtime learning sessions where you come along and you learn about what each of those products can do, what are
Okay.
prompts to use,
Yep.
what are good things to do, what are the watch outs, what are the don't do's, so that people can then start to use it better to their benefit. Because like any technology, there's those that are really keen and work it out themselves, and then those that really don't know and are scared by the change and so don't really jump into it yet. So what we're trying to do is bring everyone up to a certain level and then set them free again to see how they go, and then go back and do that again at a higher level.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes perfect sense. So if you look at sort of where you guys are at the moment, if you were sort of, crystal ball time, if you're looking sort of 3 years into the future now from a business, I mean, what are the sort of aspirations that you have as an organization?
So I think my biggest one is self-serve for everybody. So having virtual agents that are there that can speak to all the different systems and then answer any questions that people may have, whether that be a store or a person at one of the support offices. So, for example, in a store, and we've already MVP'd this, is to go to the agent and say, what temperature does chicken have to be cooked to? What's
Yeah.
the points available on a burger through Red Royalty Loyalty? How many hours can a 15-year-old work in a fortnight? Just being able to throw random questions at it and getting the answers back with links to the documentation, as opposed to now you have to go and trudge through the documentation system and search or look for the relevant policy and process and then open that up and read it. So it's all very time consuming. So I want that one-stop shop inside the agent. And then in combination with that for the right user role is then that coaching aspect. So proactive alerts about your roster is too heavy for next week, or we're running a promo, your roster's too light. You need to order more because we've got this promotion coming. This item's on run out. Make sure you clear it. All sorts of things like that that proactively tell the franchisee what needs looking at to direct them in the right direction to make them as successful as they can be.
So it is that sort of almost agentic coaching model. It's taking the data that you, and again, you must have amassed a lot of data, and helping the franchisee actually make real time sort of decisions, and potentially even make some decisions on their behalf.
Yeah, I don't know about the on behalf bit yet, but I'm sure
Yeah.
we'll get there eventually. But they're each their own small business they're running, so they should get a decision in what they do at the end of the day. But having the coach make recommendations and with fact-based information behind it to help them decide, should they go the way they were thinking or should they go the way the coach is suggesting? That's where I see us getting to. Um, there's a lot more work to be done in that to make sure that the information it provides is accurate, because we don't want to be giving any fanciful information, hallucinogenics. But yeah, that's where we're aiming to.
Okay. And I suppose following on from that, if you looked at hospitality in general, I mean, where could you see AI sort of taking or changing that industry in the future?
So I think there's opportunity for a few different areas. So one is we have self-service kiosks in our stores and people come up anonymously
Hmm.
to use those. What if the camera, without identifying the individual, but could tell that's an older person, younger person, a family together, and then automatically lay out the menu or promotions based on that customer cohort's purchasing history? So it's a family, let's put the full chicken and chips and peas up, or that looks like a single person, let's show them a burger. Um, just that sort of thing to try and get people into purchasing what we think they should to make it more efficient for them. Obviously, they still have choice. Then for customers who log in, who are loyalty customers that we know, whether by kiosk or our online channels, app and website, then addressing the menu in the format for them with the reorder for the things they usually get, just to make it a lot more quicker for them, because people come to QSR for convenience. And so you want to make that checkout experience as quick as possible. Well, pace to check out as quick as possible. Then you've got the loyalty piece. So we talked about that already, getting the right message to the right people at the right time. So I know you come in at 6 o'clock on Tuesdays, getting you an email at 5 p.m. on Tuesday with an offer, just to make sure you choose me and not one of the other competitors. And then using it elsewhere to just influence that customer decision.
Yeah, I was reading. Well, certainly one of the targets people have talked about is the sort of AI-driven sort of drive-through technology, but I think it hasn't always been, or from what I understand, hasn't been that successful so far, at least. Is that something you and your team have looked into as well?
Funny you say that. We're testing that in our lab right now with a
Yeah,
mod from the UK. Goes very well. So could order, can modify, can change items on the menu. It upsells, but upsells appropriately. Some of the ones in market that we've seen, they always selling something you may already have in your basket. This one's aware of what's in the basket. And then it's already integrated into our point of sale as well. We've got that built. So the order then goes through automatically and up onto the kitchen screen for them to start preparing. So early days, a lot of more testing to do to make sure it's good. But I see that in the next X months, 6 months maybe, going out into drive-through in parallel with a person
yeah,
just to see what it does with real people and real accents and real customer queries.
yeah,
And then using that information to then decide when we go into a pilot and run it on its own.
yeah. I am just personally intrigued about how well AI tools, and they will get far better, but at sort of picking up different, accents and variations and even terminology that you compare the terminology people use in the UK to Australia, and it's actually very different as well, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And brands saying Sprite instead of lemonade or
Yeah,
Pepsi instead of Coke, that sort of thing, and it knowing what to do and what to provide or what to feed back to the customer. So that's all what we've got to keep testing to make sure whether you're here in Sydney or in Mount Isa or over in Geraldton,
yeah,
like it still understands you and
yeah.
all quirks people have for different words get understood as well.
Yeah, I get that. Oh, look, I think it's really interesting times times that we live in. And Simon, I'm conscious we're just getting sort of towards the end of our time. So I just want to say, is there anything else that I haven't really covered that you'd sort of like to talk about around how you're seeing AI affect craveable brands?
I think what I see more in general is AI is a partner to people in doing their jobs. I don't see it as the big people replacer, at least in the short to medium term. But it's important for people to be aware of AI and to use it in their organization because that increases productivity, which is for the benefit of everyone who works there. And so that training that we've been a bit slack at that we're now pushing forward is going to help that as well. So that people are getting more to the value task rather than the menial tasks. I think that's really important. And I think that the jobs of the future are all going to be people who can work AI. That's going to be one of the questions now in interviews. Where have you not implemented it for IT people? I just mean people in general positions. Where have you used it to enhance your abilities in your position and what benefits did it bring? So I think it's regardless of what industry or department you're in, you're going to be affected by it. And it's best to jump on board and get working with it and get to understand how to make your life easier because in the future, that'll be very important.
Yeah, I totally agree with those sentiments. And Simon, I'd just like to say thank you very much for your time. It was a very interesting conversation. It's, I'm not fully across what happens in that hospitality space. So it was a really interesting insight into how you are currently using AI, but also what you're planning to use in the future as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. It's a pleasure.